قال اهبطا منها جميعا بعضكم لبعض عدو فإما يأتينكم مني هدى فمن اتبع هداي فلا يضل ولا يشقى.
Questions to that number, and we'll try to get through as many as possible, inshallah. Brother Amir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Can you hear us, by the way? Is it very clear? Alhamdulillah. Welcome to KL, to Malaysia. Is it your first time?
Nah, it's my first time.
What do you think about City?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thus far, I mean, the hospitality has been amazing. It's always, a pleasure to be in the company, your brothers and sisters in Islam. And as well as to, meet new faces as far as, those who may not have yet entered the fold of Islam. It's just beautiful to be around the youth because I can identify with a lot of things that, intrigue the youth today. Fortunately, at one point in my life, I contribute to these things. So, I feel incumbent upon me to try to suffice some of these things by, addressing some of the matters from a place of experience and share some of these experiences so that, people can get an understanding of both sides of, the videos.
MashaAllah, we're very happy to have you here, and you're very welcome. So welcome to KL, and welcome to Islam. I think you have been a Muslim for 2 years, is that right?
Since December 2008,
MashaAllah.
yeah, I accepted Islam.
We want to get to Islam and how you came to it in a minute, but I think the first question we want to ask you is, before all of that, let's rewind. Let's go back to your childhood. Can you talk to us before you were famous? As a child, where did you grow up? What was your family situation like? In which environment did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born and raised in the streets of Harlem, New York City. I was raised by my grandparents. My mother and my father, they had a very extensive career in the streets. So I was exposed to a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, a lot of crime. And this was the everyday setting in my community and in my environment. So this was my first teacher. I was raised in an environment by default that was, plagued with drugs, violence, and crime. And I was born in a predominantly Christian family. I used to spend maybe 6 days a week at church. I was in the Cub Scouts, I played piano, I did everything that the church had to offer. And this was pretty much my upbringing. I was, a good kid, had a great family, a loving family. I was very grateful for my grandmother raising me because she didn't have to. I wasn't her son, I was her grandson. So by being raised by my grandparents, and mainly my grandmother, I always had this very in-depth respect and appreciation for women because she was a very strong woman and she put forth an initiative to raise a child that wasn't hers. So with the gratitude, I've always strived to try to better myself, even though I didn't know quite what better was. So my childhood consists of trying to search for something that would be pleasing and satisfactory for this woman who took care of me. And she worked long hours. She pretty much did everything. And I always wanted to help her. I always wanted to be able to return the favor. So, that was the basis of my childhood, and that was the foundation of my search in regards of finding out who I was personally and trying to find a way to, show my gratitude for everything she's done for me.
MashaAllah, so your grandmother was obviously a big influence on you.
Very much so. She was a beautician. She used to sing in the United Negro College Fund Choir for like 35 years. And she was very adamant about, singing gospel and doing hair. She was a beautician. She just actually retired maybe a year after I took Shahada. So she's been doing hair pretty much her whole life. And it was one of her favorite things alongside cooking. She loved to cook, she loved to work. She was a neat freak. I mean, you sit something down, turn your back, 5 minutes, it's gone. She done put it somewhere, cleaned up something, So she was a hardworking woman. And she was like the strongest, image of a woman I've ever seen in my whole life. So I always appreciated that strength and that endurance that she had. And that was kind of like the barometer that was set in my mind for women. So, you know, it was a beautiful thing. And having her in my life, and may Allah guide her into the fold of Islam, inshallah.
You mentioned your grandmother used to sing.
Yeah.
Is that where your love for music came? And how did you get into music? And how were you discovered actually as a musician?
Actually, I wasn't really into music. You know, what happened with me was living in this harsh reality or this harsh environment. I used to write a lot. I used to use the writing as a means, or like a therapeutic method of dealing with some of the things that I was facing in my community. And it was all really for myself. It was just, you know, to keep myself, you know, in like a, you know, from losing my mind, you know, try to maintain my sanity. I would write things down so I wouldn't be so bottled up. And then eventually I started to use my imagination, you know, as a means to overcome some of the things I was writing down. Because after a while, writing them down started to remind me, you know, it became a mirror. And that therapeutic aspect of it started to deplete. So I started to use my imagination as a means to overcome some of the things I was dealing with in my life. And then eventually it gradually started to go into poetry, then it went into songs. So this ability to write is what drove me into the music business. I never was driven by being in front of the camera, being in front of people. I was a songwriter since 1995. I was ghostwriting for a lot of people and nobody never knew, because I never was really intrigued about being in the spotlight. You know, that came by default as well. You know, the success of some of the records I wrote, I end up being on some of the records, and that's what propelled my career. But I was always trying to, you know, stay in the background. I never needed, you know, to increase my identity. I was always cool with who I was. I was always, you know, at peace with myself to a certain degree. But, you know, the writing is what propelled me into the music business. My grandmother singing, to be honest with you, I used to get tired of like going to rehearsals with her. I'd be in the church in them hardwood chairs, just sliding down, waiting for her to finish, you know, rehearsing. And it's like, it was just something so repetitive that, you know, it just kind of, I found other things to do while she rehearsed. I would write. You know, while she was singing, I was writing. When she was doing what she was doing, I was finding other things to do. But I never was intrigued by singing. I didn't have a singing voice, that's for sure. But definitely the writing is what started everything for me.
So you weren't looking for fame, but fame came to you. And when did this happen? What year are we talking?
This happened, I would say, it intensely came about when I came to Bad Boy Records. And what happened when I came to Bad Boy, I remember being signed to Arista Records. I was a solo artist at the time, and Arista was the distributor for Bad Boy Records. So I was signed to Clive Davis, who was also another music icon. And basically, he had left and formed another company called J Records, and I was left on Arista. So my manager at the time was the same manager as Biggie Smalls. And he told me that Puff was working on a project in Miami. So I told him, you know, I wrote for Puff before. You know, prior to coming to Bad Boy, I wrote a few songs for him before. So I said, why don't you set it up so I can go, you know, work with him. So Puff, being the type of guy he is, he doesn't just, you know, throw his hand out there. He'll test you. So he scheduled me to come to Miami for 4 days and write 2 songs. And I ended up staying for 4 weeks and I wrote 11 songs. So by knocking out this whole album, we got very close and we started to get very acquainted. And at that point, he asked me to come to Bad Boy Records. So when I came to Bad Boy, I left Arista, came to Bad Boy, and that was the beginning of our career. And Puff, being the person he is, just standing next to him, you just automatically is overshadowed by this huge presence that he has. And then at the same time, you're exposed to everyone that he's exposed to. So the fame, it could come from just being an associate. It didn't really have to come from me doing songs or anything. Just being in the presence of this guy is what propelled me into being visible. And once that happened, you know, the rest will come later.
So once that happened, you know, now you are famous. Now I'm guessing you've got the money. You're hanging around and you're rubbing shoulders with celebrities. There's cars. Yeah. There's I don't know what. private jets and celebrity parties and what have you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what really was like? I mean, from a personal point of view. You know, was it everything you wanted? Was it, yeah, I made it now, fantastic? Or was there another side to it? Because I guess, you know, a lot of people dream about that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Making it and the American dream and all of that.
Yeah.
Give us an insider's guide. What was that really like?
I mean, I think people have different intentions. Like I said in the beginning, my sole intention was always to pay my grandmother back, was always to try, you know, aid my family, get some of them out of the community we was living in. So when I was able to do those things, I was kind of left stagnated, like what do I do now? Because once again, I wasn't looking for the fame. You know, I took the music business like everyone takes their job. You clock in, you clock out. When I go home, I was just, you know, Chauncey. That was my real name. I wasn't Loon at home. I was Loon on the streets. You know, I got the nickname at 13. I was Loon in the streets. I was Loon everywhere else. But when I came home, I was just Chauncey. So I knew how to separate the two.
Sorry, it just intrigues me. Why do they call it
Loon? Loon is
You don't want to go into that.
nah, Loon is short for loony. Okay. And for the Arab speakers, Majnoon. So let's just say I was risky. Like I would do things that normally you would have to think about. I was more spontaneous. So I got that name, unfortunately, from being a certain way and not trying to be that way, just came about. And that's how I was in the street. We would name you based on your strongest attribute. And at the time, I guess that was my strongest attribute. But like I was saying, once I was able to, you know, deal with some of these personal affairs and able to, you know, get my mother a house. My grandmother, she never wanted to leave Harlem, so what I did was I got her out the house for a minute and I kind of like redesigned, like, you know, I had to do like some interior decorating in her house because she didn't want to leave the ghetto. She just loved it. And I was like, all right, well, at least let me do the kitchen over. Let me do something over. At least let me make it look like a new home. So, you know, once I was able to do a lot of those things, I was kind of left with all this excess luggage. And that luggage was the, you know, the ills that come with success. And this is what a lot of people, you know, they thrive for it, not really knowing what they're asking for. And we used to have this saying, even in Jahiliyyah, like, be careful what you ask for. You know, be very careful what you ask for, because sometimes what you ask for is not really what you want. And in my case, I didn't want everything that came with the success. I just wanted a few things, and I wanted to share those things with my family, but I didn't want, you know, the success to be a mirror image of the life I thought I left in the street, you know, because that's what comes with the success. You know, in the streets, you may actually go through these extreme lengths to get your hands on certain things. But once you become successful, the access is even more easier, because now, you know, drugs comes to you, you know. Opportunities to engage in illegal sexual acts and stuff, it comes to you. You know, intoxication, all this stuff comes to you. And it just you become like a magnet for everything that's in opposition to what we're taught in Islam. So that was the luggage, that was the baggage I could have did without. And after that becoming repetitive for quite some time, you start to feel guilty, you know, because you have women submitting themselves to your success. You don't even know me, you know. Sometimes you can look in the eyes of some of these people and tell that they're pushing themselves to do something that they don't even do. And me coming from the street, I know this look. You know, I had the eyes of a wolf. So I see sheep. I see sheep a mile away, you know. So in a sense, a lot of people in that business, we become like vampires. We become like these carnivores, and we see these sheep and like these, you know, these animals that predators look for. And this is where it becomes, you know, very sinful. And this is where the guilt starts to sit in when you realize you're doing this to somebody's sister, you're doing this to somebody's daughter, you're doing this to somebody's mother. You're actually misleading someone's son. You know, this guy's a good kid. Why you got him hanging around you smoking weed and stuff? So you start feeling guilty for these things. And me having a good heart and me having a good upbringing, these things were not coinciding with the moral, teachings that I was given in my household. And it started to bother me.
So you started to feel guilty. Now, how can we link that? I mean, where did Islam come from? You obviously started to have this kind of self-consciousness that maybe what you were doing, the lifestyle you were leading was not really where you want to be deep inside. Yeah. But from the lifestyle you were living and the people you were hanging around with, where did the link to Islam come from? How did you discover that?
Well, one thing, and I could say for a lot of artists, even like being with Diddy, he always attributed his success to something greater. He always attributed his success to God. Like, I never seen a guy, who prayed before every show. He prayed before getting on a plane. He prayed before rehearsal. And many of us, we are in tune with our fitrah. We just can't identify with the source. So like a part of me was always looking for that completeness. I was always looking for that missing piece, that missing piece to the puzzle. Because knowing your purpose of creation is one of the most beautiful things that Islam teaches us. So now we're here knowing why we're here, opposed to me living a lifestyle thinking that this is my purpose, but I'm not feeling like I'm serving a purpose. I'm not serving a purpose. But this is my purpose. Am I just here to continuously splurge money? Am I continuously here to just sin 24 hours a day? Am I here to just be in clubs all night? Watching a lot of stuff go down in the clubs that people don't document or talk about, and it's like, this was so consistent that I felt like, okay, what was I striving for? I was already born in this environment. I could have did without the music business if I was going to be, engulfed in this same type of stuff. Because the whole purpose of trying to escape, the ghetto, or trying to escape this harsh environment, is to get away from it, not to increase in it. Not to step into a situation where you're jumping out of the pot and into the fire. So this is what was happening to me. So I started to realize, okay, something's not right.
You mentioned an Arabic word there, fitrah. Can you explain what that means?
Well, fitrah is your natural disposition. It's your natural inclination. And this is what every human being is created with, regardless of what, faith you choose or what aspect of living you feel is suitable for yourself. You're inclined to know that there's something greater than you. You're created that way. It's just like if you were, you was in a taxi and, you gave somebody $5 and he accidentally gave you a $100 bill. Now, while you're sitting there debating, should I give it back or should I keep it, he speeds off. A part of you know you're going to be held accountable for this. Even if this guy never comes back, even if you never see this guy again, and you know he's a poor guy, you know he needs this $100 to feed his family, a part of you just feels like, I'm going to have to answer for this. And it's not the individual that you're worried about. You're worried about something greater inside yourself, that you're going to have to answer for that slight moment where you thought even 5% evil, you thought wrong. Maybe I should keep it. Maybe I should give it back. So while you're having this little debate in your mind, the guy speeds off. Now you're feeling bad that this might be a month worth of food for this man's family that you're holding in your hand. You can't give it back. I'm going to have to answer for this. That's your natural inclination. Especially when you're in when you're in a heightened situation. In most cases, like when I was in the street, somebody pull a gun on you, you don't say don't shoot. You say, oh my God, don't shoot. You put God first. It's the first thing come on your mind. Oh my God, don't shoot. But in some cases, some people, after, the situation resolved, then you find time to seek refuge somewhere else. You say, oh, thank you, Jesus. But you wasn't thinking about that at the very moment. The very moment, it was, oh my God, don't shoot. You jump out of a plane, parachute don't work. You, oh my God, 30,000 feet going down. You just screaming, God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you just pulling and tugging, oh my God. That's the first thing. That's your natural inclination, to know that you're calling on something greater than yourself, because you know at that point you're deficient. You can't do for yourself. There's nothing you can do for yourself in this situation. Who do you call on? Some people, unfortunately, they say, oh, tell my wife I love her. No, but most people just say, oh my God, I don't want to die. Oh my God, I'm getting cold. Oh my God, I can't feel my leg. Oh my God. So it's instinctive for you to do this, and that's what we all created with. And as adults, we have to come to some point in our life and search, what is the source of that? Where does that come from? That's not something that you created for yourself. That's not something you established within yourself. You were created with that. And that was the basis of my search. I wanted to know, why is it that I can identify with all of this sin that I'm doing, and I know that I'm going to have to stand accountable for it. I don't know where, I don't know when, and I don't know who's going to be present when it happens, but I know that I am. And that was the basis of me searching for something better.
How did Oh My God become Allah? I mean, you're from a Christian family. Why not go back to Christianity? Where did your exposure to Islam come from, and why Islam?
To be honest with you, I remember being in, like I said, I used to be in church 6 days a week. So when you stuck in Bible studies, in the beginning of it is just like you try to find ways, paperclip fight. You just try something to kill time. But then eventually you have to start absorbing some of the stuff that you're being taught. So I remember questioning my pastor one day. I asked him, I said, I've been reading in Bible class, and it's like I've come across, a lot of, evidence that Jesus used to pray, or Jesus used to submit himself. And I asked the pastor, and it was like the worst question to ask. I mean, our relationship wasn't the same since I asked this question, but I asked him, I said, if Jesus is God, then why is he praying? And he just looked at me and kind of like went into this whole rant. Boy, you don't believe in Jesus, he's your Lord and Savior. I said, no, I didn't say that. I just asked you a question, sir. Just relax. I'm just a kid. I just want to know. I'm like 10 years old. I'm just asking, because if that's what he does in his time of need, then that's what I want to do. Because in the streets, we know to align ourselves with strength. You understand? Because in certain circumstances, you have to align yourself with something that's strong. Even if you can't identify with your creator. But in times where you have problems in the street, you need to be around strong people. You don't hang around people that run from the first shot, wow, and everybody running, and you standing there like, you stand with people that stand strong. So I'm looking at an individual who I was raised to think as a strong person. And I'll never, and even now as a Muslim, I could never take away from that image of strength that I always seen in Jesus Christ, or Isa alayhi salam. But at some point, he's submitting himself to something greater than him. So at that point, I want to do that. You understand? I can't call on him if he's calling on somebody else. So I want to call on the one he's calling to. So when I got shut down, I never went to church again. And I just walked around with I believe in God. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a linguistic meaning for God or anything. I just knew that whoever Jesus is praying to, that's the God. I'm going to believe in him. I'm going to make sure that anything I do, I'm going to attribute it to him. I'm going to make sure that anytime I'm in a time of need, because I wasn't big on asking people for anything anyway. So I had my own private moments. And a lot of times it was in like the worst places. You find yourself in a prison cell and you're just looking up like, okay, thanks for inviting me to your office again. Now what did I do wrong? Please let me know what I need to do to get out of here, and I won't do it again. And that was reoccurring in my life. I used to call prison God's office, for real. Every time I used to end up there, I was like, okay, all right, what do I do now? It's like your boss calling you upstairs, like, yeah, the boss wants to see you. It's like, here I am, sitting in the cell, this big door closed. I'm like, okay, what did I do? All right, what I got to do to get out of here? I promise I won't do it again and come back. So, that was just the ignorance that, that was my train of thought back then. And, alhamdulillah, I'm able to identify with what I thought I knew. And, things are a lot better for me now, inshallah.
MashaAllah. So, what was your first exposure to Islam? Did you read the Quran? Did you meet Muslims?
My first exposure, I guess I was always exposed to Muslims because I lived in New York City. And y'all know New York City. You got every culture in the world. So you don't need a passport. If you live in New York, you've been to every country. You done met everybody. You met a Chinese person. You met an African person. You met a Russian. You met somebody from Europe. But in my community, it was somewhat kind of dominated by the Muslim presence. I never was identified or able to identify with Islam, but I always knew the Muslims. We had Muslims in our community. We had a lot of Muslims from Yemen and stuff like that. They own most of the local, grocery stores in the community. We had a lot of West African brothers from like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, stuff like that, that had most of the cab services there. And you know, the Pakistanis, you know, alhamdulillah, they had most of the pharmacies. Matter of fact, all of the pharmacies. All of the pharmacies. Alhamdulillah. But then, you know, like, you know, Indian people, mostly, these are the people that were treating us in the hospital. We come in the hospital as an Indian guy there. It's like this long name tag. We're like, oh man, this guy going to, you know, and the first thing they pull out is a needle. It's like, I ain't even tell you what's wrong with me yet. And you ready to stick me. So, you know, this was the, like the tainted perception that I had of the Muslim. I never seen Islam practice. You know, like in the Yemeni stores, you'll see like little pictures of 5-year-olds holding AKs. And these were to us, it was like defense mechanisms. Because you're in a harsh neighborhood. So they got pictures of 4-year-olds holding AKs, so that makes you think, okay, I'm not going to start no trouble with this guy in the grocery store. Because if his son got an AK, and this dude here must have had a tank somewhere or like a rocket launcher or something. So everybody had their little methods, their little scare tactics. You know, you look at the cab drivers. They're riding with strangers sitting behind them all day. So they kind of on edge. So you need to get in the car and know where you're going and don't change. Like, don't switch up your direction and all of a sudden I want to go left. He's going to get nervous. He's going to be like, hold on, what do you mean? You said you want to go this way. You know what? Get out. You know, because everybody's on edge. It's New York City.
Okay, taxi driver.
Huh?
Honolulu taxi drivers tend to be like that as well.
Oh, here?
Oh, yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I ain't had to ride no taxi since I've been here. Yeah, they like that in Egypt too. I live in Egypt. So alhamdulillah. But yeah, you know, I was always exposed to the Muslim. But I think the first thing that really intrigued me was being able to travel to Muslim countries. You know, because I had the same perception like most Americans who glue themselves to media. I remember getting invited to the UAE to perform. And the first thing came to my mind is like, I'm not taking no invitation to go out there and do no songs. Like, I watch the news. You know, no way. You always see the news, there's always like a reporter. You can't even hear him talking. It's like, yeah, we have heavy gunfire in the back right now. You know, there's some insurgents and, you know, we're trying to, you know, escort some civilians. Like, I'm not going there to do no show unless the stage is bulletproof or something like that, you know. But when I got there, I seen palm trees. I seen like people wearing all white, smiling, greeting each other, hugging each other, women covered. I was like, no, this is a whole different kind of Islam. And then, you know, different things, hospitality that I received going into some of the Muslim homes, hearing the adhan, you know, watching the sunrise. So all these things collectively played a significant role in like softening my heart to accept Islam, because no one gave me dawah. Like, no one talked to me about Islam. I wasn't fortunate to sit in forums like this. I never had like a Muslim friend take me as the non-Muslim friend to, you know, see, you know, certain aspects of Islam. But I was fortunate, you know, to be guided by Allah's guidance, you know. Alhamdulillah, when I saw the truth and I seen that piece that was missing in my life, I quickly accepted it. I quickly discarded everything else that didn't have any value, everything that I thought had a value, everything that a lot of youth today think has a value. Some of you who may already be Muslim and have the same value that I have now, and you're risking throwing it away to pick up my trash. SubhanAllah. It's like you sanitation workers. It's like, don't pick up trash. I threw trash away, you know, to have something of value. So that was basically it for me.
You talked about women before. We all know how the music industry, especially,
Oh yeah.
you know, rappers and hip hop portrays women. Those videos that you see on TV. How did your perception of women change from when you were in that atmosphere and after you became a Muslim?
Well, to be honest with you, before Islam and by my grandmother's moral teachings, I was always taught to respect women, period. But then I was definitely taught to respect women that respect themselves. Because when you look at the videos, these women are not, you know, put on the stage on gunpoint. They're not brought to the video set by gunpoint and they sitting there like, you know, with a gun on off outside the camera and she's standing there dancing and acting crazy. No, these are women who choose to put themselves in this position, not knowing that it tarnishes, you know, the perception of women in general. So, and then it ultimately falls on us, the guy that's paying for the video or the guy whose video it is. It's like we turn into pimps now. It's like we the guys that made these women get on there and do this type of things. So my respect and appreciation for women has always started with my grandmother. Like I said, that was always the barometer that was set for me in regards of what I thought was a heightened sense of what a woman should be. So I always measured women that way. Any woman that fell in accordance with that, hands down, no argument, no wrestling, always got my respect, always got my appreciation. And for women in general, I always respect them because I got sisters. You know, I got a family full of girls. Like, I should have been playing double dutch and stuff like that. Like, I got nothing but girls in my family. Most of my fights was because of the girls, and my family always get in trouble messing with some knuckleheads. But I've always respected women, and I've always struggled to respect women who don't respect themselves, because at some point it gets kind of tiring when you're trying to, you know, be a certain way, but you can see that a woman blatantly doesn't respect herself. So it's almost like you slip into this mind frame of, if she don't care about herself, why should I? You know, you do the same thing with men too. It's like, you know, you're a man. Be a man. Don't act like no girl. Don't act like the women act when, you know, because that's how sometimes brothers be saying, yo, this rapper, he's a jerk. I went and asked him for autograph and this, but how did you ask? Did you ask like a man, or did you go over there like a girl? Like, you know, sir, I'm gonna treat you like you treat yourself. And that was just instinctive for us, because you got to understand, everything we're doing is spontaneous. We don't have time to rehearse or think about how you're going to treat the first 2 or the first 5 people that approach you, and after 15, I'm going to treat them like this, and when the 30th person come, I'm just going to get, you know, we don't think like that. You think whoever approaches me, the impression that you make is what I'm going to give you in return. You approach with respect, I'm going to respect you. You come talking to me like I owe you something, then I'm going to give you what I think I owe you. You know what I'm saying, for lack of better words. But I think that, like I said, you know, coming to Islam, my perspective on women has only increased, because now I know that I'm in a religion where this modesty is practiced. This safeguarding of the modesty is practiced. It's a practice, you know. So it's not something that you critique. You don't critique it based on the level of how it's practiced. You just know that you're a part of something that is practiced. Even with the brothers as well. This humility, you know, this modesty and this humbleness and stuff, this is something that we practice. And practice makes perfect. And the more we practice, the more better we become as people. You know what I'm saying? You know, first and foremost. And as we become better Muslims as well. But when you practice this, it's different from forging it for certain environments. You understand? Because certain people straighten up when the boss come by. It's like, but when it's somebody that you just don't, it's like whatever. But in Islam, you know, we're commanded and we're taught to practice this. So when I see sisters, whether they at a level of iman where they wearing niqab, or if they're at a level where they just wearing hijab or jibab or khimar, whatever the case may be, I know that she's practicing, trying to be modest. So I would never make it hard on her, or I would never, you know, impose on her like she has no respect for herself, because she's struggling with practicing something of perfection. But is she going to be perfect? No. And same thing with the brothers as well, you know. Alhamdulillah.
Absolutely. What are you doing after the music industry? What have you been doing with your life? You mentioned you're living in Egypt.
Yeah, I live in Egypt.
What are you doing there? What have you been doing after leaving the music industry?
I mean, after I left it, oh, it's better? Yeah, he gave me, oh yeah, it's better. Oh, he gave me the whack mic. I'm the rapper. Yeah, now, after I left the music industry, I just immediately focused on increasing in my knowledge and understanding of the religion I just accepted. Because one thing about me growing up, I never was like a person that freestyled. I never was like a person that just experimented with things. I had to know what I was getting myself into. Because I came from an environment where you can make one false move and you can lose everything. You can lose your life. You can lose everything. So everything had to be kind of premeditated in regards of entering something. You had to know what you was getting yourself into. So when I came into the fold of Islam, I knew it was the truth. But increasing and understanding that truth was something that was necessary for me. And the proof is when most of you may have seen the interview in Al Jazeera. You know, here I am, fresh off of Umrah. I'm sitting here smiling from ear to ear. I haven't smiled in years, and I'm just sitting here like, wallahi, when I left Saudi, all of this was just sore. All of this was just twisted. It was just sore. So I was just so happy. And then I remember turning down all these interviews from like Muslim media venues because I wasn't quite prepared to deal with those and didn't have enough knowledge to explain what I was about or what I was upon. And I didn't want to make the Muslims look bad. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the first invitation. Alhamdulillah, I was going to be on a Muslim station with a Muslim reporter, and he's going to understand how vulnerable I am. But wallahi azim, I get on there, this guy's asking me to rap, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, and I'm in the green room. I don't see this guy half naked behind me. I don't see my videos playing or nothing. I'm in the green room. Well, this is green. So I'm sitting there looking like, like I'm on punked. You know what I'm saying? I'm just sitting here like, well, nah, I don't do that no more. And I'm still sitting there like, this guy's a Muslim. He's asking me to rap. Like, what's wrong with him? Do we know this could actually nullify my whole Umrah? So making tawaf and doing everything just goes down the drain because I just left Umrah and I'm going to sit up here and rap? Like, subhanAllah. So, I've been tested since I took my Shahada. And I know a lot of people look at it and say, okay, he had it easy. He just came from the music business. He came with all this money. He's straight. He just falls into the fold. And look at us. We out here struggling and he's not going through anything. I don't even think he ever had a cold. You're wrong. You know what I'm saying? I've been tested since I stepped into the fold of Islam. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows the capacity of His slaves. He knows the capacity of what we can deal with. It's just a matter of us accepting that you're strong enough to deal with it. Don't give up. Don't fold. Don't just succumb to the fact that, okay, listen, I'm going in the fire anyway. I'm going to have it up to my ankles. I might as well just dive in. No. You know what I'm saying? So this transition has not been easy for me, but it has been humbling. It has been very, very humbling because, the things I've experienced in Jahiliyyah and some of the trials that came before me, I can honestly say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy for me, but it's no duck walk. It's not like, it's no duck walk. It's not simple. It's just, I'm still going through trials. There's still things I'm struggling with. So I'm not here to point out anybody's flaws. I'm not here to belittle anybody or even sit up here like I'm better than anybody. I'm just a Muslim, And I like to be acknowledged as just a Muslim. And this was one of the reasons why I went to Egypt. Not to be funny, the Egyptians don't even care who Loon is. SubhanAllah, they got their own issues. They got a lot going on. And the Egyptians is just really like I go any other places, like I always get spotted and it's like, Loon. I've been in Egypt for 5 months. And I'm only spotted by people that come from secular countries. Never an Egyptian. And there was a brother that advised me. He said, no, if you want to go learn Arabic, you should go to Egypt. He said, because you go to Saudi, you're going to get pampered. The Saudis going to spoil you. You ain't going to even pick up one book. And I was like, that is true. I went to Umrah and they spoiled me. So I went to Egypt and it's like, it's humbling because I'm there and I'm nobody. I'm just a mere. So, I've been able to pick up the Arabic. I've been able to learn. And this is what I've been doing with my time, just trying to learn my religion because I know I'm in the public eye. I may be more visible than a lot of you. So anything that I say or anything I do is going to be a reflection on you. And I'm guaranteed that there's plenty of people on the side making bets that I'm going, shave my beard in another summer, let another summer go by, give it some time, he'll be back with Diddy. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people making bets, stuff for the love. I know it is, and Allah knows best. But the reality of it is, I just try to focus on saving myself. Saving myself, then saving my family. And then, inshallah, whatever knowledge I obtain through my travels or through my studies, hopefully I could benefit the people, inshallah.
Allah give you istiqamah.
Ameen, inshallah. Ameen.
Last question before we open it up to the floor. Since you left the music industry, you became Muslim, have you spoken to any of your former colleagues about Islam? And what has the reaction been from those people since you became Muslim?
Well, since I became Muslim, I speak to Puff sometimes. Actually, when I was living in Atlanta, and they had the music awards there, he would always request to see me. And I remember the first time we talked, it was really funny because I didn't know how he was going to respond. But a part of me really didn't care. And I felt like, you know, it was something I needed to do, but it wasn't wajib. It was like, okay, that's Puff. He's not my father. He's just, you know, my friend. He's my partner. He's my ex-business partner. So when he invited me, I said to myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure he know I'm Muslim from the first minute he see me. So I got the most crispiest white thobe I had. I put like a half a gallon of olive oil in my beard, and I was like, I put on the best atta. I said, you know what? He going to know as soon as they crack the door. The oud is going to come through the door. He going to know, you know, he's in the presence of a Muslim. Alhamdulillah, when I spoke to him, he seemed very open. Because I know this guy, and I know a lot of those music industry people, they are dying. You know, you think they living. See, when you see them in the videos, you like they living it up. But they're dying it down. They're not living it up, they're dying it down. It's the exact opposite. They're dying. It's just like this camera. When that light go off, the guy that's smiling and dancing, he's not dancing when the camera goes off. First thing he might do as soon as they say cut is throw his phone against the wall. Call his accountant, curse him out. You know, smack his assistant in the face or something. These guys are angry people sometimes, you know. But that's not exaggeration. Like, they're very, very like detached from happiness to the extent that you think they're happy. But when I spoke to him, he seemed very open. He asked me a lot of questions. I was kind of intrigued that he was asking cool questions, not generic questions, like cool questions, like, you know, what kind of Muslim is you? And I was like, okay, I'm trying to be a good Muslim. He's like, nah, I'm just saying, I know it's different. What's the difference between the guys with the beards and the guys without the beards? But I know the way he thinks. He's thinking, if I was to become a Muslim, I don't want to wear the beard. This is the way Diddy mind works. It's like he's trying to figure out where he fit in. It ain't about like he has any idea about, you know, the differing between, you know, some Muslims. He's looking at it like, okay, who's the guys with the beards and who's the guys without the beards? Because all that hair on your face, I don't think I could do that. I want to keep Diddy, but if I wanted to be, you know, his questions is like that. And I'm knowing this, so I'm being very patient, and I'm trying to stay on the receiving end. I don't want to say anything, I'm just receiving. So everything he's saying, I'm just repelling, receiving it and repelling it, receiving it and repelling it. And then when I mentioned about Dave Chappelle becoming Muslim, but this is more in his tax bracket, you know, I'm the little guy. But Dave Chappelle turned down, you know, $50 million, you know, and turned to Islam. You know, he was supposed to renew his contract for his comedy show, and he felt that, you know, Islam was the better choice. So he turned down $50 million. So a lot of people in the industry didn't know why Dave left, because he never made like no public announcement, like I'm turning down $50 million and I'm going to accept the religion of Islam and don't call me for no more comedy shows, no stand-up, and he didn't do that. So when I told Puff that, it clicked. Everything I was saying was cool, it was Jade. But this information was Mumtaz. It was like, okay, wow, 50 million. Now that's serious. So after our conversation, you know, we talked, and I was leaving, and I remember him saying, yo, I love you, yo. I was like, wow. We never talk like that to each other. You know, we had this like competitiveness with us, and we would conceal our soft part, you know, our softness for each other, but he let it out. And it was just an opportunity for me to say something I never said. I love you too, yo. So alhamdulillah, you know, and like, you know, Busta Rhymes, Raekwon, a lot of them, you know, Freeway, I speak to a lot of them. And a lot of them see how serious I am about the deen, so they kind of call me like I'm their imam or something. It's like, you know, they kind of like, yo, what's going on? And a lot of times they feel like they have to, you know, tell me things like, yo, I'm about to, you know, get this up soon. I'm like, you know, just take your time. You know, I understand what it is. Me, it's a different situation. But whenever, you know, you're ready, whatever. And certain talks, I would invite Freeway to let him talk because, you know, he struggles. He goes to Umrah and he tries to do a lot of things, but he's still struggling with the music. The same way like a listener, he's struggling as a performer. He wants to kick it. You know, this guy, wallahi, he prays all his prayers. Ramadan, he puts a lock on his refrigerator. For real, like he's like a fiend. He's like a junkie trying to like kick, but he know Islam is the cure. You know, so seeing this, as funny as it may seem, but it's hard to see somebody that you know going through that transition and that fight within itself, but he's in an environment where everyone around him is in opposition of this understanding. So it's a hardship for him. It ain't like he's booking shows in non-alcoholic clubs. He has to go, or he feel he has to go. But alhamdulillah.
This will be the last question,
Inshallah.
You gave up something which people, even in the Muslim world, Muslim youth worldwide, are in awe of. They want to be like those guys. They want to be like Loon. And if there was one piece of advice you could leave the youth of Malaysia before you leave, what would it be?
It would be I'm still Loon, but I am your brother Amir. So if you're intrigued by anything that I'm doing, then do what I'm doing now. Don't do what I did. Do what I'm doing now. I'm chasing, every day I'm trying to seek nearness to the one that created me. Every day this is what I'm doing, and there's a fight. There's a fight, and it seems like the more I benefit and the more I learn, the harder the trials become. And sometimes we cop out when we start seeing the hardship coming. We want all the good. You want all the good. You want all the glory. You want all this mercy bestowed upon you, but you don't want to fight for it. But then when you look at some of the materialistic things that you're willing to fight for, you got to put it in the scale and see which one has the most benefit. And you'll see that the fight you're fighting for nothing, when you could fight for something. Fight for something. Fight for your deen. Fight for understanding, your purpose of creation, whether you know it completely or not. But this is something you can do for the rest of your life. I'm 35 years old. I can't stand up in front of 30,000 people with my shirt off. There's a girl standing in the stage, 16 years old. I'm going to feel naked in front of her. My daughter's 19. What I look like standing there as a 16-year-old popping bubble gum looking up there that has an expiration date. Just like everything else. Just like everybody in here. Everybody's going to die. Every single person in here is going to expire. But we're going to be questioned about what we did with the time. And you can give 3 hours to youth. Most of y'all university students, y'all break y'all neck to give the professor an A, but you give Allah a D. SubhanAllah. Put it in the scale. Weigh it. Because that A that you get, you're not going to be questioned about that in the grave. Nobody's going to ask you what was the title of Lil Wayne's third album. Nobody's going to ask you what's the laws of physics. Nobody's going to ask you. These angels are not going to ask you these questions. You understand? And these questions apply to those who believe and don't believe. But we're going to be questioned about who is our Lord, who is the messenger that was sent, and what is your religion? These questions, as simple as they sound, but this is not practice, and la ilaha illallah is not something that's repetitive on your tongue, and also an action takes place in your limbs. Who's to say you're going to be able to say it? Who's to say you're going to be able to comply when you're faced with this inevitable, situation? Because believe me, I come from the street. I see people that can't even talk with a gun in their face. Somebody pull a gun and say, yeah, my wallet's on my left, my sister's, hers is in the house, my mother, hers is under the bed. My father, he didn't ask you all that. He just asked you where your money. But look how scared you are. You're just saying all this unnecessary stuff. But at those moments, are we going to be prepared? Like we used to say in the streets, put your money where your mouth is. Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. So my advice to you is, like one of the scholars used to say, you have to protect wealth, but knowledge protects you. This is the difference between wealth and knowledge. You have to protect your wealth. You put it in the bank, you put it under the bed, you lock it up, you click it up, you stand over it. Some people hold guns and wait for somebody to even reach for it. But knowledge protects you. And it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to have knowledge of our deen, to have knowledge, to act upon it, then call the people to it. Have knowledge, act upon it, and call the people to it. Because you can't call it to something you haven't acted upon, and you can't act upon something you don't know. So, Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون